Welcome my friends, Seven Gray here. Thank you for joining me for this episode. Recently I read a comment on a previous video. Someone asked for me to just sort of describe and go through my day for a video. I used to do this when I started out, and somewhere along the lines I got sort of distracted from that. So today's video, just sort of going with me throughout my day, what my routine is, and what's happening in my life. So I hope you enjoy this. Let's roll the intro and get into it. I usually wake up about between 6 and 7. I don't use an alarm anymore. Haven't used an alarm since, probably 2010, something like that. So going on about 12 years. And so I just wake up when I wake up, and then I'm laying in bed, and I click on a little remote to turn on my new diesel heater. I love it. Let me show you the remote. So I'm laying in bed during the middle of the night. I wake up at whatever time I wake up. If it's really cold, like 40 degrees, something like that. By really cold, I mean above freezing, but cold enough to make my hands and fingers cold, my toes cold, my ears cold. Then I'll just reach over to my left-hand side, grab this tiny little remote, which you probably can't see because it's dark in here, and I click the on button. My heater comes on and it gets toasty warm by the time it's whenever I wake up. I usually wake up between 6 and 7 roughly. Sometimes I sleep as long as 8. I don't worry about it. After I'm up and dressed, I have some little coat hooks over here. I keep all my clothes right here and get dressed. So when I wake up, it's completely dark in here because I don't have any lights running through the night. My main inverter, I have 2 inverters. I have my main inverter turned off during the night, and just the small inverter over here is running the fridge and nothing else. So I get up over here, click this button here, and the light comes on. And I just have a light up here on top of my refrigerator, and that lights up the entire space in here. Although it doesn't look very bright on video here, it's actually just fine for me. As I said before, it's about 6:30. I go back over here to my sliding glass door and open up my curtain that I have that goes across the entire door, and I can see outside this beautiful view here. I'm up in Colorado in the middle of the forest. These are all pine trees here. Just a gorgeous view, and my deck out the back here. Next is making coffee. I actually prepare some of this the night before. Get the water in the coffee maker, which is over here. Get the filter all set up. And then all I have to do in the morning is go and put my coffee into the coffee maker itself. When I was in my van, I used an AeroPress, which does not require any power, and I just shut that lid, press the button. This is a drip machine, and then I can finish my morning routine. Here's the coffee maker here, and it's going to be running. Then I can just finish my morning routine, which is brushing my teeth. I'm not super hungry this morning. Some mornings I'm not. Some mornings I make eggs or egg sandwich. I'll make a breakfast burrito, different kinds of things with eggs. This morning I think I'll just have a banana and some coffee for right now. Maybe some breakfast later. I don't know. I don't know if you guys find this totally fascinating or super boring or what, but back when I was in sticks and bricks before I started full-time nomadic living, I got addicted to these power sonic vibrating toothbrushes. So I bought one that's specific for travel. It has a little case that charges it. It runs off a USB, and it works great for travel. It's one of my splurges, if you will, for weight, because the difference in weight between this, which doesn't weigh all that much, and a regular toothbrush, which is as light as a feather, is a lot. So this is my preferred toothbrush. The difference it makes in how your teeth feel is tremendous. Again, I don't know why people find this stuff fascinating, But after I make my coffee, I usually sit down in my bed. I don't currently have any seating in my cargo trailer. When I was in my van, I used to sit on the bench that was also the bed, and then I had a rotating table, and I would read my emails and do my internet surfing. I really enjoy reading generic news stories, international news, and particularly world news. So I read things like The Guardian and NPR International News and things like that to see what's happening around the world. And then I have a few favorite websites that are sort of morning inspirational, so I go read those. Pop over to YouTube and see some of the new subscriptions and see what's available there. And just have my coffee during all of this while I'm going through. It's the traditional thing that men have been doing and women for many, many years, reading the newspaper over breakfast in the morning, but it's just sort of in a revised version for me now. So anyway, I do that here while I'm eating my breakfast, and then I have a couple of online projects that I'm going to work on this morning, and I'm not going to necessarily show you that, but I'm working on a website with a friend. So I'm going into a server and configuring the DNS and setting up the FTP for upload. This particular one's going to be hosting PDF downloads for friends who want to download these things. So anyway, working on that today, and so I'll work on that probably for an hour or two here in the morning until it's warm enough outside when I'll go for a walk. Once it's warm enough out, I like to go for a walk. Sometimes that's at 8 o'clock in the morning, sometimes it's 10:30. I just sort of wait for good weather, and then I try to go for a walk 20 minutes, 25, something like that. Take a different direction every time. Usually when I arrive at an area that I've never camped at before, I choose a different direction every time I go for a walk, just to see what the other campsites are like, if there's better campsites for the next time I'm in the area. See who else is in the area, if they're friends that I know. Sometimes I stop and chat with people that I've never met before. Today I'm just picking a small trail. I think this is probably a game trail, and it's just going downhill, sort of behind where I'm camped, up in the mountains, sort of in the area of Buena Vista. I know that locals pronounce that Buena Vista. Not sure exactly why. I'm guessing because they're typical gringos, and I say that sort of in a judgmental way towards people that have never studied Spanish at all, which I guess is probably a lot of Americans, but anyway, Buena Vista. So I'm up in that area right now. I may or may not have mentioned before, but I was born in Denver, Colorado, actually just outside of there, and for much of my youth, I moved a lot, like 27 times, something like that, before I graduated from high school. In fact, the day I graduated from high school, my family was packed up and moving from Grand Junction over to the Denver area. But anyway, moved a lot, mostly through the Rocky Mountains, but sort of emotionally, I would say Colorado is sort of where I would consider home. So I very, very much enjoy it here and try to come back in the summer months when it's nice weather here and spend some time up in the mountains, which I enjoy so much. I very much enjoy this time of year in Colorado. It's probably almost 70 degrees right now, upper 60s. And off in the distance back here, maybe you can see it, maybe you can't. Snow-capped mountains back there. I usually try to walk fast enough that I am just slightly short of breath. That way it works the cardio system just a little bit. Not necessarily so great for shooting video, but trying to accomplish two things at once here. All right, I guess it's time to turn around and start heading back. I'm trying to figure out how to describe this, but my typical day is based around passions balanced with reducing stress in my life to try to have the highest quality of life. I don't like having obligations, things that I feel compelled, like I have to do. I prefer to have activities that I am interested in doing, things that I'm passionate about or love to do. So it's a lot about quality of life. So every day I usually pick, 1, 2, or 3 small projects, sometimes working on part of a larger project to work on. So today I've got a few things that I'm interested in working on. We'll see how it goes. If I get stuck, that's okay. I'll postpone it. Sometimes for just a few hours, sometimes for a few days, sometimes for a few weeks, until I come up with a solution that is not stressful for me. Now, I'm sure that's not typically how most of you live your lives. You sort of push through the pain, push through the stress, and get things done as quickly and efficiently as possible. It's probably how the majority of people do it. It's not necessarily the path that I've chosen for my life. A large part of that decision making on my lifestyle has come over the last 10, 12 years as I've began full-time nomadic living, and particularly living abroad, spending a lot of time in Asia. And you may or may not know that I spent some of that time living in Buddhist temples with monks, priests, if you want to call them. They call themselves masters, male and female masters, and talking with them and adopting many of the principles of Buddhism in my life. So my lifestyle is based very, very much on quality of life and some of those principles, which revolves around living in the moment, in this moment right now, savoring it, enjoying it, trying to have the highest quality of life possible. And if I get things done, great. If they get done later, that's fine too. Today's project I'm working on is rather small, and it's something I've been toying with, thinking about for the last several months, and that is how to level my deck, this ramp. This is normally used as a ramp, and I'm making it into a deck. So there's 2 options. One is to come up with some sort of stand or bracing underneath, which is what I have right now. I just have some 5-gallon buckets under there and paint cans to get it more or less level. The other option is to come up with some sort of suspension to attach at the far corners and up at the top and suspend it. The advantage there is it would always be level. I wouldn't have to worry about adjusting the height based on the ground. It's always level once I pull up to a spot, even if I'm off of like a ledge or a hill or a cliff or something like that, it would be level. The downside is it would probably be a little bit bouncy. So I don't know, pros and cons of both directions. The simplest thing I think right now is to do ratchet straps. So let me show you what I have in mind. Started into this already, and what I've done is drilled and attached eye bolts up here, which you can see, and then attach a ratchet strap down below, and this ratchet strap will go all the way down here and connect to the bottom corners. Originally I thought I would use this like carabiner here and attach it through here, attach the ratchet strap, but these are made out of aluminum, and as you can see here, they've sort of got bent out of shape just due to the weight, and that's just me standing on it, not even any guests. So I think I'm not going to go with the carabiner route. This is just not quite robust enough. What I want to do today is drill out this hole so that I'm able to just put this hook directly on the ratchet strap into the hole, and then I can play with this for a few weeks, see if I decide I like this method, or even maybe have both. Maybe this is one of the methods for leveling the deck, and then also put some sort of jack stands or something underneath. And now I should be able to fit the hook in here. Fits perfectly. I'm going to go ahead and leave the buckets underneath the supports just in case these straps break or in case something in the connection is not strong enough. I'll leave that here for a week or so and experiment and see how bouncy it is or not, and see if I like this method. But I think I'll probably end up going with this. I may change these later to steel cables, which wouldn't have as much spring and be much stronger. But this gives me a chance to see if I like the system and if it's easy to set up. To break it down, I can just remove these straps and put the trailer ramp back up in order to travel. It's almost my lunchtime. Sometime between 11:30 and 12, I decide I'm going to make my lunch. Sometimes I know in advance what I'm going to make, and sometimes I just make a spur-of-the-moment decision. Probably every other day or something like that, I make something in my Instant Pot, which I've really come to love. Today, I've decided to make Chinese bok choy with a sesame seed oil, like drizzle over the top with some chicken. So let me just sort of show you how I make this. This is an adapted version from Timothy Ferriss from the 4-Hour Chef, from his book, where I sort of learned the basics of cooking just a few years ago. So I'm very new at all this. But anyway, let me show you what I'm doing. All right, the first thing is you've got to put one of these little riser things here in the bottom of your pot for the Instant Pot. My Instant Pot's up here. And this runs easily on my lithium batteries and solar here, so not a big deal, particularly the middle of the day. So then I want to top this with water up to about the level of this little rack here. And then I'm going to put the bok choy and the chicken in here. Now, I do have to say that the recipe calls for baby bok choy, and that's my preference. I have a really hard time finding this, particularly in the smaller towns up in Colorado mountains. But baby bok choy is the best way. I have just normal bok choy, so I've got to cut this down not only to fit into the Instant Pot, but also it makes it easier to eat. Okay, so I've chopped it up. I've just set this on top of that little grate there, and then next I just take a frozen chicken, and technically you should probably thaw this first, at least with the Timothy Ferriss recipe. But I found that just putting it in with the steamer on Instant Pot is just fine. I just run it a little bit longer, and then everything turns out great. And then I've just got this set up so that I can do the steam here, and I let it run. Make sure that the chicken's done. If the chicken's not quite done, I can put it on my induction cooktop and polish it off that way. So this doesn't take too long, maybe about 20-25 minutes to run through the entire pressurization and depressurization. I just let it run so that it cooks the chicken as much as possible, and then the veggies turn out pretty good. Alright, here's the sauce that I made up. Recipe calls for scallops, but I just dice up yellow onion, which seems to work just fine. And then 50% of sesame oil and 50% grapeseed oil. You can also use olive oil if you want. Anyway, I'll put a link to the recipe down below that Timothy Ferriss uses, which is pretty close to what I come up with. The flavor's approximately the same. Recipe calls for that mixture to sit overnight, but if I don't think I'm going to do it the next day or just forget, then I make it as I'm running the Instant Pot, and so it sits there for maybe 30 minutes, and I just stir it occasionally. I think the purpose is to let those flavors sort of merge together over time, particularly the scallops that are in there when you chop those up to permeate into the oil. But I found it just stirring it every few minutes that the flavor isn't that much different, at least to my palate. While I'm waiting, I top off my Berkey here, so I've just got my water set up above, and I just let it drip down into here, into the Berkey, and then I'm able to get to the nozzle right below. And my lunch is done. I've put it on a plate. Now, this is not necessarily the most beautiful meal. It actually tastes much better than it looks, but it looks all right. And here's my lunch here. It's chicken with the bok choy on top. I just have to put my sauce onto this. I took about an hour nap, and afterwards decided to work on another project, and that's reversing the hinges on my refrigerator. So as you can see, I have the top here off and going through the instructions step by step, and it's off right now. So I'm trying to be as quick as possible so the stuff doesn't thaw. So I'm going to put the camera down and try to finish up. Alright, I got it done. The doors are all reversed here. I think I might need to adjust these just slightly by maybe a 1/16 of an inch. It's just barely rubbing as it goes in. You can hear a little squeak. But other than that, seems like I did an okay job following the instructions. When I read these yesterday, they weren't super clear to me, but as I got into it and worked on it, it sort of cleared up. I'm just amazed every time I accomplish a project like this that I've never tackled before, especially something daunting. I've been putting this off for a few weeks, so sort of happy to have this done. It's about 5 o'clock now. I think it's probably time to have some dinner. I'm actually going to make another batch or reheat part of what I had for lunch for my dinner tonight. Well, that's about it for me today. I just finished my dinner. Typically in the evenings, I just relax, watch a video, usually streaming from Netflix or something that I have on a hard drive, and read a book for an hour or two, something like that. And then it's lights out for me. That sometimes happens at 9 o'clock in the evening, sometimes as late as midnight. It just totally varies on when I get sleepy and when I get tired. So thank you so much for watching. Savor the moment, and I'll see you in a future episode.